Andrew, how seriously should we take the likes of those gathered for the World Economic Forum?
I think it's extraordinary, and I do like your story about the frog, because never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. People regurgitate stories they hear for a long time, and it's a great example of having to sort of question everything, because we're in dire situations, and some of the language coming out of Davos does hint at that. And we're actually probably in the global economies facing the biggest threat since World War II. And you see the headlines screaming about whether it's eating or heating and so on and so forth. There are no solutions effectively offered. And that's the problem. And you look at that sort of time, you talk about fear. It was Edward Bernays who turned around, the father of PA, had PA as well, but father of PR. He said the best way to sell anything to anybody is through fear. So you work on that sort of basis. You give people lots of dramatic statistics. You sell that fear. You sell people regurgitating the same stories. And all of a sudden, if you don't offer solutions, then it causes panic. There are solutions when you start looking at it. And if you look at the stats and the figures and so on and so forth, you can work your way through that in an educated way.
Benjamin, Klaus Schwab famously, notoriously likes to say or to imply that he has influence all over. In governments, in Canada, in France and elsewhere. Does he really? Should he be taken seriously when he says those things?
Yeah, well, I've often said, you know, in terms of conspiracy theories, the best thing you can possibly do for these people is to believe in them, because you create the sense that they are as powerful as they want you to believe that they are. Now, this idea that a group of elites are controlling the world and changing things, you know, well, they might be trying to, but do they actually have the power? Ultimately, there are 7 billion of us, and only a few of them. We have the numbers. You know, they can't control us without our consent, without our compliance. But when you have a defeatist attitude of, oh, these people are extremely wealthy and extremely powerful, and they're going to sort of, you know, play their games, and we're all going to just part of it, I don't think that's an accurate thing. You know, all it takes is for us to realise the power that we have and walk away, and they lose their power. And there's a great thing Chesterton said. He said, it's better to be in the valley rather than on the peak, because from the valley you see great things, but from the peak you only see tiny things. And I think that's the problem. When you go up to the peak on your own and you look down and you see people as dots, you forget that they're human. You forget that those are individuals. And it's a lot easier to do evil things from a peak than from in the valley.
The honest answer to that, though, is what you want is both.
Yeah.
You want people at the top of the mountain looking down, and you need people on the ground as well, because by working, collaborating, that's what's going to happen. The interesting thing about this sort of stuff is, for the first time in maybe 50 years, they're reassessing globalisation. Because all of a sudden you're turning around and saying, does it really work when you've got to look after everybody? Or do we now draw up the drawbridge effectively and say, be self-centric? The US first on that sort of stuff is what Trump is saying.